And I'd like to welcome you all to Raina's To Go for another great cooking class. And today we're going to teach you a very, very special one. And for anybody in the audience that's a chocoholic, I suggest you grab a pillow or something and squeeze on and hold on tight, because we've got a class for you today that's going to make you crazy until you can reproduce this recipe for yourself. It's called chocolate intemperance. Chocolate decadence is more like it. What we're going to do first is we're going to make a brownie base for this dessert in a regular old jelly roll pan. And that is a measurement of about 17 inches by about 11. And what we've done is we've sprayed this pan with a little bit of nonstick spray all over the bottom of the sides. We've gone ahead and put a piece of parchment paper on top of that, and we've sprayed that just to ensure that the brownie is going to come loose when we need it to. So we're going to put that down, and what we've done so far is in a microwave or over hot water, whichever is more convenient for you, we've melted 1 stick, that's 4 ounces of unsalted butter, the sweet butter, along with 4 ounces of unsweetened chocolate. And we've combined those two, and they're now cooling down. In the bowl of our mixer, we have an additional stick of sweet butter, and we're going to cream that with 2 cups of granulated sugar. This is a very, very sweet dessert. And we're going to start adding that slowly. And don't worry if it seems very grainy and very stiff, because we have to add our eggs and our melted chocolate mixture, and that's going to make this all very light and fluffy. Now what I'd like to do right here is stop the machine, scrape down the sides of the bowl, and let it rip one more time. Now, I've got 3 large eggs. And please remember, whenever you're baking, unless it specifies otherwise in the recipe, never use anything but a large egg, because that little bit of liquid difference one way or another could make or break your recipe. And one at a time, I'm going to add my eggs into my cream butter and sugar. I'd say I have my mixer on a medium speed. For those of you that like to know that, it's about on a 5 on a scale of 10. I'm going to stop the machine one more time and scrape down the sides of the bowl. And one more time, put it on 5. Now, I'm going to add to this mixture 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'd like you only to use pure vanilla and never an imitation. Makes all the difference in the world. And a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I always use a scant 1/2 teaspoon. I don't like a lot of salt. Increase the speed to incorporate that real well. And lower it again, because you don't want to get all splashed with chocolate. And this mixture is slightly warm, which is what we want. It's not hot. And we're going to pour that right in here. And you're going to have to get into the container and get all of that chocolate out. The chocolate and the butter that we melted in the microwave. Or, as I said, over boiling water. Don't scorch the chocolate though, kids, because it'll come out tasting burnt. Now, let's scrape down the sides of the pan or the bowl one more time. And let that incorporate on low. Now then, Usually I don't tell my students to use all-purpose flour in baking, but this recipe calls for it instead of cake flour. And what I have here is 1 cup of all-purpose flour that's already been sifted, and while it's on low, I'm going to fold it in. And this is our basic brownie mixture. Increase the speed. Stop the machine, scrape down the sides one more time. And we're done. You're going to pour this into the jelly roll pan that's already been prepared. Try to get all that chocolate off the paddle, okay? And smooth it as best we can with a flat metal spatula, and bake it in a preheated 350-degree oven for about 25 minutes. Now remember, you have to watch this, because if you overbake it and it gets too brittle and too dry, even though it might taste great, you're not going to be able to cut the pattern that you need to make the encasement for the chocolate intemperance. So I want you not to overbake this. In fact, if you test it with a toothpick, the ultimate desire is that there still be a few specks of the chocolate mixture on the toothpick. Please bake this off in the middle of the oven, never way up high. It'll get done much too fast. Never way down too low, the bottom will burn. So off we go. Tap the pan 2 times and put that in the oven. Now while the brownie's baking off in the oven, the next thing we have to do is make the Grand Marnier chocolate mousse that's going to go in the cavity of the chocolate intemperance. And what I've gone ahead and done here for you was separate 2 of the 3 eggs, and I'm going to separate the 3rd one so that you can see. Just tap the edge of the egg against your bowl to separate the white from the yolk. And with the 3 yolks, what we're going to do is bring them back into our machine, and we're going to beat them until they're a pale yellow. Then I've gone ahead and taken 1.5 pounds of semi-sweet chocolate with 1/2 cup of strong brewed coffee. And I'm going to start adding this mixture into the egg yolk. Keeping in mind that the chocolate mixture has to have sufficiently cooled so that our hot chocolate doesn't hit the egg yolk and curdle it. And I'd say maybe 5 minutes out of the microwave and you're in good shape. Or off of a boiling pan of water, whatever. I don't want all of you feeling compelled who don't own microwaves to run out and buy them, although they're sure handy for things like this. Now, this is the good part. What I've got here is 1/2 cup of Grand Marnier. If you don't like the taste of orange and chocolate, you can do rum and chocolate or raspberry and chocolate, but I happen to love rum and chocolate, or orange and chocolate. I think I love rum and chocolate too. And I'm going to very, very gradually pour that into my chocolate and egg yolk mixture and coffee to again get a complete incorporation. Scrape down those sides because this can get very, very stiff. Take this off the mixer and set it aside, and take those 3 egg yolks, put them into the mixture with a wire whisk, and beat them until soft peaks form. Oh boy, it's hard to resist all the chocolate. Now what I want you to do, once you've gotten this somewhat beaten, to take 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar and slowly add that to the 3 egg whites that are whipping. And you're making somewhat of a meringue here. I don't want you to go and beat them so stiff though that you're not going to be able to fold them into the chocolate mixture, because the last thing you want to do is bite into your intemperance and see a big clump of egg white in there. So if you underbeat them just a bit, the incorporation will be successful. And this is almost ready. And what we're going to do is take this off the mixer now and beat in the mixer again until soft peaks form. 1/2 cup of whipping cream. Now that we've got our meringue whipped, we're going to take that 1/2 cup of cream and whip it again until the soft peaks form. And remember not to over whip. And a good rule of thumb in whipping any cream is if you start off with a chilled bowl and a chilled beater like we just did, you're going to get it whipped a lot quicker. And you have to again be careful with whipping cream because you don't want to turn it into butter by over whipping it. But a nice tip for you to know, because I'm sure we've all done it, if you don't want to use it as butter, then what you can do is just add to the already over whipped product a little more whipping cream and you'll bring it back. So that's one nice way of saving it. Now what I've done here is I've taken that chocolate, egg yolk, coffee, and Grand Marnier mixture, which is sufficiently cooled, and put it in a larger bowl. And I'm going to take the whipped cream and the meringue and incorporate the two. And I'm going to gently, with a rubber spatula, fold them. I'm going to fold them together, and we're going to set that aside. And as it sits for a while, as long as it's not in too warm of a space, it'll start to thicken up on its own. In time, this mixture, when it's cold, will get thick enough to cut because the chocolate intemperance is served sliced. I want you to get that really mixed up good. Gently but firmly. And that's going to be what goes in the middle of our chocolate intemperance. Doesn't that look great? Okay, we've taken our brownie out of the oven, and as you can see here, it's got a slight crust to it on top. And we're going to let it cool for a few minutes, and we're going to unmold it and cut out the pattern. Okay, now we've gone ahead and we've unmolded our brownie onto a cutting board. And we have our loaf pan, what you'll find you probably have in the kitchen somewhere from bread baking, just a regular old loaf pan. And I've taken a piece of saran wrap and I've put as an anchor 2 pieces of masking tape on my saran wrap. That's going to help me lift my dessert out of the pan. I want you just to press it right in there. Make sure that it's smooth and firmly up against the edges. And that means your pan's ready to fill. Now I've gone ahead and I've cut and I've kept them from other times, a template of sort. And what this does for me is it gives me a pattern that'll actually fit right here in the middle of my pan. Can you see how that just fits in there? And I have a side pattern for each of the sides. And I have an end pattern for each of the ends, and then this bottom one will become my top again. And I save that in an envelope in the kitchen drawer, and then I know it's there the next time I want to make the recipe. It takes a few minutes to cut the pattern, and if you know your pattern's exact, you don't have to worry about doing it again. So I've gone ahead and I've put that on my cooled brownie, I'm going to push this up a little bit so that you can see it. And I've got one piece, and don't worry if it breaks. That's not a problem. And I'm fitting it into the bottom of the pan. Now I need a side on my pan. So I go ahead and I've cut my side, and I lift this up, and I fit that right along the side. And again, don't worry if it breaks. In the end, it all gets covered with a great chocolate glaze called ganache. Just press it in there. You see why it's important to have this brownie a little bit undercooked. It's much easier to work with. I need another side now. Turn this one around. Press that in along the side as well. And now what I need are ends. I'm going to take my end there, press that down, and I'm making a chocolate cavity. Huh, that's a play on words, huh? And what I've done here is I've created a space for that great chocolate mousse. You see that? Now I'm going to take the chocolate mousse that we've made, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it in the cavity. What I'm going to do now with our chocolate cavity is take the mousse that you can see has already started to stiffen, and I'm going to put it right in this and keep smoothing it. I want to make sure that I get as much of it in as possible, if not all of it. All you chocoholics out here, I hear you screaming, take it easy. Pretty soon you're going to be making this and eating it too. What I want you to do is take that same metal spatula and smooth this in there as much as you can. And I'm going to make another sound, a loud sound. I'm going to get all the air pockets out. As you can see now, we have a completely encased chocolate mousse. I'm going to take this last piece and put it on top and fit it right on top of the mousse in the pan. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the end pieces of the plastic wrap and cover it. And I want you to put this in the freezer at least 4 hours, or if you want overnight, or even up to a whole week, because you don't need to do anything to it until you're ready to serve it. But you want to be able to get it solidly frozen before you use it. Now our ganache has to be made in order to finish our chocolate intemperance. And what we've done here is we've taken 1 cup of whipping cream and we brought it to a boil on top of the stove. And I'm using a real good quality chocolate chip because I think that's something you can find readily available. Although a good German chocolate or a good Swiss chocolate's preferable, these commercial chips will do just fine for this. I've put in here 9 ounces of semi-sweet chips right into the bowl, and I'm going to pour the hot cream on top of the chips. And I want to completely stir this until all the chocolate's melted, and you've got what we call chocolate ganache. And I'll tell you something about chocolate ganache. You can make this as many times as you want at once. You can use 4 pounds of chocolate and just keep increasing the amount of cream. The rule of thumb is for every 4.5 ounces of chocolate, you need a half a cup of cream. So get your handy dandy calculator out and just keep going. And you can put it in the refrigerator and have it, and it's the best hot fudge sauce for ice cream you've ever had. It's a terrific glaze for cakes. You can use it as a filling for cakes if you want. You can do a dessert crepe and use it to mask the crepe. Anything you want. Ganache is very versatile, and it's sort of like a stock item or a mise en place item that you have all the time ready and on hand in your refrigerator, just like you might have a good mustard vinaigrette made and ready for salads. But now it's ready, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull out our chocolate intemperance, and we're going to glaze it with this. So what you've got is chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. And when you slice it and you put it in your mouth, you'll understand why it's such a terrific recipe and one that we have such great demand for. Okay, now what I've gone ahead and done, I've taken my intemperance out of the freezer and just lifted it right out of the pan. And as you can see, it's as hard as a rock, and it's literally indestructible. There's nothing you can do to hurt it. When I want just to brush off any excess crumbs, and my ganache is just at the right glazing consistency, like a real thick, heavy cream. And I'm going to pour it right on top of this cake. I've managed to set it on a rack that's sitting on a piece of parchment paper on a cookie sheet, only because it's a shame to lose any of the chocolate, and when I get it cool again, I can scrape this chocolate right up and reuse it. There's no reason whatsoever to lose it. And as you can see, the very, very cold dessert against the cooled but not cold ganache gives me a real firm base to make the chocolate glaze just absolutely stick onto the sides of the cake. And depending on how chocolatey you like things, if you want to do a second coat, you can, but frankly, I think that in itself is enough and beautiful. And you put this in the refrigerator until you're ready to use it. Put it on a silver tray. If you want, you can take some rosettes of whipped cream down the center, candied violets, or if you want to do what we do to add, again, insult to injury, get this somewhat cold and firm, put it in a pastry bag with a star tip, and just dollop, big dollops of ganache right down the middle of the cake. Maybe get some gold, pretty little leaves that they sell in a good cookware shop and just peek them in and out. You've got an incredible dessert. Serves about 12 to 16 people, or one very, very avid chocoholic. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll be back again real soon with another good recipe for you.